Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Talkback for the amazing film Cast Aside the Clouds. My name is Karen Sachs, and I am here with Mary Darling, the director of the film, writer, and a whole lot of other stuff. Two co-directors, Vader and Felicia Sobhani, and Houman Eshraghi, who's responsible for the overall look of everything in this film. So I want to welcome everybody. And I'm going to start by saying I think one of the things that makes this film so powerful is a quote I saw. And I guess, Mary, since you wrote the quotes on the website, this is from you, and I'm going to read it. What happened behind the camera was just as meaningful as what unfolded in front of it.
That's wonderful. Well, actually, I'll probably ask the three on the screen to talk more about that than myself. But I would say one of the things that we really tried to do in making the film is, the Baha'i teachings, and of course, our main character in the film is a Baha'i, really is about unity. And it really is about new models of decision making, even in terms of consulting together for creative decisions. So, though it may be unusual to have three directors on a project or somebody of Houman's caliber come to the table, the idea is to try to share ideas in a very open way to be able to get the best result, not necessarily only one person's visions as the best result. Bree, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I think that through consultation, we were able to collaborate in a rare way. So we would have, daily meetings to sort of think about what is the best course of action, not only to make the film the best it can be, but also to make the environment the best it can be for the cast and the crew. And I think through those consultations, we were able to come to some creative decision making and hopefully make the best decision that we could at the time, with the limitations that any film has. But I think that we were able to do that together.
Felicia?
Felicia?
I think also adding on, like we all come from different perspectives, and we shot this film in Greece and it takes place in Iran. So there are moments on set where we have Greek happening, Iranian, and English, and we have to like not only literally translate, but also translate the meanings of what everyone was trying to say. So it was a very unique experience of learning and unlearning some of the ways of thinking and how we approach things that I think it brought us to this beautiful product, which you feel in the film, because it took a labor of a lot of love and effort from different people.
I can see that. I just want to say I've never done a talk back with the director and co-directors, and we have had a lot of directors on, but I don't remember ever working with co-directors. What was that like?
Do you know, it's funny because a lot of people have said, even at the beginning when we were thinking about bringing on co-directors, that it's not the way to do it. In other words, it would either ding a reputation, like, no, one person should hold the vision and it should go, and that should be your calling card, or that it would muddy the waters, that you wouldn't get what you're wanting because you're trying to do sort of a group think sort of thing. And so this idea of, there's a number of things that go into thinking about bringing in additional voices into a creative vision. And I think bringing on people who you trust, in this case, Bree and Felicia are people I've known for a really long time. And, they're both younger than I am and have other ideas. The one thing that really unified us that I knew would work was this art of consultation. How do you make decisions? And knowing that, when push came to shove, if a decision had to be made that we didn't agree on, that I would make the decision. That's like any sort of, but being made as well as much as possible without there being additional conflict. And that was made it so much easier. And I think too that directors, that there's a certain ego that goes with, taking on a project. And I do think that in our industry, battling that ego isn't such a bad thing. To sort of say, I can submit to this idea because it's better than the thought I had. And that happened on a number of occasions where either Bree or Felicia would have an idea. I think one of my favorites was in the scene in the hospital with the parents. We were going to shoot that on sticks. You know, we're going to shoot that nice and still, shot, reverse shot kind of stuff. And really, I mean, 20 minutes before we were rolling, Bree said, "Don't you think this would be really interesting handheld?" And we were like hidden behind a curtain in that sort of hospital room together, just figuring it out. And the answer was yes. So we were able to go to Baynoot, our DOP, and just say, "What do you think?" And he was so excited about it. And Houman then had to leap to the fore because suddenly the camera was going to hit every angle of that room. So he had to go back and think about, well, what are we going to be seeing? How much are we revealing? How does the cast get out of, how does the crew get out of the way and all that kind of stuff. So, but it was a very quick and right decision when you watch that scene. Like, Houman, how did that affect you working with three really great minds?
It was wonderful. Like the process of the whole experience was just something that I enjoyed thoroughly. It was fantastic. But yeah, I mean that's all I can say. It was very different. It was very unique, and it was very it was an example of how filmmaking can be achieved without this extreme top-down structure that we often work under. So it was very pleasant to be in that creative environment.
So I was going to say, Houman, there's quite a bit of handheld shooting involved in this that I guess you were in charge of. And it seems to me that the intimate scenes, the family scenes were more of the handheld. Am I right there?
That is true.
I wasn't involved with any sort of hands-on camera whatsoever. Just to be clear. So yeah, that all of that decision was Mary and Bree and Felicia and Benud. I just sort of tried to accommodate the environment as much as possible. So
And
yeah.
wow, how he did that. Because the other thing that Houman really brought, and Baynood, our director of photography, is that they're both from Iran. They both grew up in Iran and left Iran. Um, so the visuals, like understanding the cultural norms, we didn't have to work to translate that to camera. We got to focus on character development, story, that kind of thing, while Houman and Baynood really took care of the Persian environment, as Persians.
So some of your Persian environment, and I was going to get to this later, involves some actual footage from Iran. And when I was watching it, I'm like, wow, is that stock footage or how? And I know you had to go through quite a bit to get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that was something that we wanted to do really from the very beginning of shooting, was to try to bring in some actual footage from Iran. And it was interesting to finally coordinate it because, of course, it's not easy. And it's not easy to shoot in Iran, and it's not easy to get the footage out of Iran. And we figured out how to do both. Our photographer there remains anonymous for obvious reasons. And he went out twice for us and picked up that footage. The first time, I could tell he was a little bit worried because he stayed very much outside of the city, and we got lots of highway shots and things, horizons. And the second time he went out, he went right into the city, and we got some nice park scenes and things like that. So, but yeah, getting it out, we were able to get it couriered out to London and then over to me in Scotland. So it went as smoothly as could possibly be.
I'm going to guess that the government of Iran would not be very happy with you.
I would probably assume a similar thing. Maybe not now. Perhaps in the future they'll be happy with us. What do you guys think?
Think that I think that we needed what we got. I think that the footage that came from Iran, the purpose of it was not to obviously exploit or do anything controversial. The purpose of it is actually to depict the beauty and the humanity and the day-to-day life of Iran, and the way that that comes across in the film, I think, is really enriches the film, its authenticity and what we're trying to say about Iran. So I was really happy that that was able to be included.
Yeah. What do you think, Felicia?
I agree. But I wanted to share this one moment of the first, like the day before shooting, which really brings Houman in. Our first scene took place in this bookstore, but to make it authentic to Iran, we needed to make it a Persian bookstore. And I think this also speaks to the process that we were trying to create is the weekend leading up to our first day of shooting, we had the entire crew create these book covers, styrofoam. I don't know how to describe it, but it went from like the producers were doing this to like our van drivers to every crew member was a part of this process to make this bookstore come to life. And it didn't matter if you were in the art department or not. We just knew we had to get it done. And we spent countless hours doing it. And I think that speaks to the set environment we were creating, but also the authenticity of making sure that it felt like Iran.
Absolutely. People have asked, where is that bookstore in Tehran? Because people believe it's there. Houman, how was
Yeah.
that for you? I wonder. When I
Creating the
think,
bookstore.
Well, the experience physically almost killed me, but since I'm here to tell about it, and actually, I want to say that Felicia was one of the most helpful, like because what happened was, the crew in Greece was very different than what any of us, I think, were used to, and roles and things like that. So at some point, I mean, I had a really nice art department, really, really great art department, but we needed extra hand as somebody who could potentially do some art directing, and Felicia just jumped in that role like like with no struggle at all, and just helped us move along. Otherwise, I think we would have been a little bit in trouble. So everybody just it was all hands on deck, and everybody just did things that they maybe normally wouldn't do in a typical environment. And that's, I think, how we came to finish a lot of these sets that in such little time and resources, was
that's
because
right.
everybody was open to it was very unified, and yeah. But the bookstore is now one of the actual owner, who was initially very resistant. He was very adamant about his own books, which were really pricey books, antiquated books, and it was very difficult to work in that space. But we knew that that space was a special place where it was located in the city and everything. But anyway, as we did the shooting and time went by, and one thing that was very special at the end of it was that he came. He told the producer, I think it was one of the producers or one of you guys, that
Yeah.
he wanted to keep the sign on his bookstore forever, because he had so many people come, and they were so curious about why there's this Persian writing on his on his bookstore, that he just thought it was very special. So it's now one of the official sites of Cast Aside the Clouds, and to be visited
On the tour.
On the
On the tour. And
on
I
the
have to say,
tour.
I wanted to mirror what Houman said, because it was all hands on deck, and we were working in a foreign land with foreign speaking individuals, everybody with the right vision and the right heart, but moving, and job descriptions were different. And so I remember contacting Bree when she was still back in Boston and saying, "Listen, I need you to jump into the wardrobe department and just help with that." And same with Felicia saying, "You're in the art department." And we all just did it. And you created, it was interesting too, between the three women, this shorthand communication, because we really knew what was going to show up on set, thanks to Houman and the department, but thanks to the ladies who also had extra added work of working in with costume and art direction.
Well, thank you for shattering my illusions. I want to talk about the story because we haven't done that yet and seems kind of important. And I watched this and thought, wow, at the beginning, probably for the entire first hour, a lot of very universal themes that some of these family scenes could have been all of our families and in this country sitting down at a Thanksgiving dinner with our political differences and that sort of thing. And then halfway through, we just got gobsmacked.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say it's like boy meets girl, boy, but the way boy loses girl is, is not usual in a film. And the idea of, a love story is, I think, what we were really trying to convey, a love story that is translatable universally, whether it's a Baha'i falling in love with a Muslim or a Mormon falling in love with a Zoroastrian or whatever, that story first had to be solidified in an actual love story, so we cared about the characters and what happened to them. But it is a real surprise what happens in the middle of the film, and I think, in thinking about, I think what Felicia was alluding to, and maybe Felicia, you could talk about it a little bit, and Bree, is the modernity that we're trying to show in Iran, because of course in North America we see a lot of footage out of Iran that feels either quite dreary. Everybody's head covered. We hear the stories only of arrests, only of protests, but we don't actually get to see an ordinary couple forming a relationship in a place that's stunningly beautiful. Bree, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that, in telling a universal story or a specific story becomes very universal. The the love story that we tried to convey was something that I'm glad that you said was, very relatable. And then that where it hits you in the middle, you feel so as surprised as I think you should feel, and as outraged as you should feel, and as confused as you should feel, to not know exactly what's going on, what caused this disruption in the the road of their relationship is now potentially a dead end. I think that the modern telling of that story and what I was alluding to with the footage from Iran is conveying that, young Iranians, they fall in love and have the same desires and feelings as anyone in the Western world. It's just the challenges that you face based on culture, and these things can get in the way of true love. So yeah, Felicia.
I think I'll just add that we did a lot of research, especially for that moment, what happens in the middle. Um, Mary had countless interviews. We had a lot of consultants to make it as authentic and truthful as possible. I think that was our main goal, was to make this as truthful as possible, like ego aside, our own selves aside. How do we tell this story? Because it hasn't been told before. The love story part has been, but how girl loses boy, I mean, boy loses girl, we've never seen that on screen. And that is something so personal to all of us. I have family members in Iran that have experienced that. Houman has also firsthand experienced that with his family. So it was something very personal and sensitive. And we were facing that task together of how do we do this, and how do we do it right and truthful. And I think we were able to do our best.
Unfortunately, it's something that a lot of people have experienced, and that's why we were able to do such deep research into what happens, how it happens, and what it sounds like, and what it feels like, and what it looks like. And I think Houman was a particular day for you, the day that that happened, as the disruption to the set was so intense and the resets were so intense. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I mean, part of the intense experience about shooting this film was going like just remembering all the events in my childhood. Three particular ones that was very much reflected in the feelings of. So all of this emotions were coming back on set, and I didn't know where exactly, and I was it was kind of like um, going through trauma, like working out your trauma stuff that you had forgotten about. So that was very
Yeah.
interesting for me, going through, yeah, very intense.
So this is a very personal film for, I would assume for all of you, but Mary especially. Why did you choose to make this?
Do you know, I mean, it really does go back to when I was about 18 years old. And when I was raised Catholic. My grandmother was Jewish. I heard about the Baha'i faith. Somebody just said, I'm a Baha'i. That means I believe in Baha'u'llah. And that sort of spurred a big question in me. And simultaneously, while I was investigating the faith, there was the Iran hostage crisis. And when you watch the film, you'll hear the reference to Roya, who was executed along with her husband and her daughter. And that was all happening when I was investigating the faith, or just after I became a Baha'i. And the youngest of those who were executed in Shiraz at that time was a young woman named Mona, who was slightly younger than me. She was 17 when she was executed. And it raised a lot of really monstrous questions. And that sort of exploration about what's going on in Iran all the time is in my mind, because the Baha'is in Iran demonstrate such a constructive resiliency, which means essentially that their faith is deep, and their belief in the oneness of humanity is deep, and their belief in the understanding that prejudices of all kinds need to be overcome. And many individuals are imprisoned. I mean, there's a lot of arrests happening right now, particularly amongst young women after the conflict between Iran and Israel. There's new arrests being made where Baha'is are being accused of being, spies for Israel or spies for America, just like in our film. And so this kind of pressure is constantly on. But because of the response of the Baha'is in Iran, it's really what I think we need to learn worldwide, this idea of being resilient, standing up for what we really believe in, having a voice in the community, but not like protesting or not. And I'm not saying we shouldn't protest. That's not what I'm saying, but finding another way of being able to build community that's beyond the norm. And I think that the Baha'is in Iran stand as a great example of that. And from the time I was 18 years old, I've thought that and watched as that community has continued to deal with persecution, lack of ability to, attend higher education, or jobs being withheld, homes destroyed, cemeteries desecrated, and things like this. But it's been alive in me since I was a youth, because of these individuals particularly. And I think, Houman, I don't know if you want to speak about Mona at all, but I think it's as powerful for him, and probably a lifelong endeavor for Houman as much as myself and others.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a very tough subject to talk about because the persona of Mona is one that I hold very separate from any attempt to try to portray on film or anything.
Yeah.
It's a very I think in due time we will pay respect to that. But uh, just having been in her presence and the attitude to which one would strive to have a freedom of belief, especially one that unifies mankind, and then being persecuted for it at such a young age. I mean, it's something that is you don't hear about too much. But in due time, we probably may hear more about that part of it. So yeah, for me it was just kind of an opportunity to revisit thinking about her and who she was and some of the other individuals who suffered the same losses. My own grandfather, for example, in prison, who died in prison. So it was an opportunity to look at what these people were thinking and what their attitudes were, and how do you even portray that on film, on celluloid, and get it across? It's a tough one. So yeah, lots of thoughts there. But, yeah.
I think at one point Layla gives a very impassioned, not defense, but explanation of her Baha'i faith and what it's all about. And I feel like that's coming from you all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, we really tried to be very clear from the beginning that the story is a love story and that these two characters are who they are. But because it's the first time that we're ever seeing a Baha'i protagonist dramatized or in a film, we really took care to try to make sure that her character was deep enough that we understood that, the film isn't just a film that's trying to introduce people to the Baha'i faith. Although I hope that it adequately does that at some level, because the teachings of the faith, I think, goes a long way towards the remedy that the world actually needs right now. But it's not really what we're trying to do. We might hope that people try to look it up and understand more about it, but it's not its agenda, if it will. It really is to just experiment ourselves about how do you tell a story for the mainstream audience that includes this character who really is living a real life in Iran, in real circumstances that real people are living right now. How do we convey that in a way that's tender and deep and kind, and looking at Iran not as an evil villain, but looking at Iran as, like many countries, having certain prejudices or beliefs that it needs to overcome itself as a group, and that every voice needs to come to the table to solve these problems, and most especially and urgently the youth voice. And so that's why our characters are the ages that they are. And, for Sasan, I think it's very interesting because he lives a life that isn't touched by most of these things. And he lives, I would say it's an entitled life. He doesn't really have to worry about his education. He doesn't have to worry if he goes inside the country, outside the country. And he's never really had to think very much about this. And so the cover is pulled back on him. And I think whether you're Iranian or you're from anywhere in the world, when we begin to pull back the covers on the things that we don't know, it really benefits us all to closely examine those things that, old habits that might reinforce prejudices, ways of thinking or unthinking things, what we learned from our parents. Are they all the best teachings? I hope that my kids look and say, okay, mom did her best, but there's areas in her life I want to do better. And if we can do this as a, individual in our communities, even, and then, going up into institutions, even when we begin to actually have the courage to examine our own prejudices, I think things can begin to move. But if we're sort of calcified, thinking, well, this is the way it's done, this is the way it's always been, this is who I am, I accept my position, whatever, I think, we should be curious.
I think that Sasan in this film has the most personal growth of any of the characters, I would say. And I guess you did that. I want to take a step back to something you spoke about a couple of minutes ago about youth. And because we are a film festival of people who watch credits, I'm going to talk about a couple of the things that you put in your credits. And one is your dedication to the youth of the world.
Very much important. If that could have been our very first credit, it would have been. As we were, producing credits, I swear, producing end credits is as hard as making a film. Yeah, the youth of the world, if they can see the defects of the world around them, which I think youth are often, they see the defects, but they're paralyzed by them. They spend their time figuring out how to be distracted from the concerns and the worries of the world. But if the youth of the world can be alert to what's going on in the world and to be thinking about, yes, it's defective, but it can be corrected. I think this is the reason we made this film, is that it can alert, it can create insight into the importance of building something new. Just because something's falling apart doesn't mean something else can't be growing or is growing. Anyway,
So-
Bree, what would you add to that? Because I don't.
Yeah, I think that the youth movement in the world today, the way that our story hopefully is conveyed and appreciated in the film is something that, through this specific story of prejudice and injustice, this story is not, unfortunately, unique. Prejudice and injustice is happening all over the world in all different communities. And so for the youth to be touched, surprised, outraged by that, look within your own community, look within a community that you can influence and touch and be inspired by, and try and do something to remedy some of this prejudice and injustice that's happening in the world.
One more thing out of the credits, and I hope our viewers either go back and watch this again or saw that one of your executive producers is promoters of peace through social justice.
Do it's a beautiful thing when you speak about ego or lack of ego. One of the contributors of the film didn't wish to have their name, not because they were concerned about their safety in Iran, not because they were concerned for anything other than promoting something greater than themselves. And so rather than their names, they asked to have these words. And I was actually moved to tears in this conversation with them, because you'll see when other contributors' names rolls, some people choose to have their name. That's fantastic. I really appreciate that too, to have people's names there. Some people just chose to be anonymous when you hit that credit list. And what's really beautiful is that we just said, we're just going to put anonymous in as many times as there was a contributor, so that each anonymous person gets to see that credit. But the promoters, that credit to me brought tears to my eyes, because I know who they are myself, and the degree of selflessness and love for future builders of unity. That's what they chose to put. I love that.
It's beautiful. And as a social justice film festival, it means a lot to us as well. I'm going to really quickly pop up your website, because it's, let's see if I can do that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can get that there for us. No. There we go. And I think that a lot of people with questions will get a lot of their questions answered by seeing what's on your website and the various places. And I'm thrilled that we're able to present this film. I have to ask also, what's next for Cast Aside the Clouds?
So if I had any pronunciation ability, we were just selected for the Thessaloniki Festival in Greece. So we'll be doing our European premiere there, which is very exciting, because, when I think about Teaneck and the connection to the visit by Abdul Baha in 1912 to Teaneck, New Jersey, the fact that it's in Teaneck thrills us beyond explanation. The fact that it's in Hamilton, Ontario, which is literally at a theater I could walk 10 minutes to here, and it's our local kind of debut, thrills us. And then to have it in our hometown, nearly our hometown, our home country in Greece, where we shot, at this quite prestigious festival there, again, just brings such delight. So that's what's next in terms of the festival standpoint. We hope that we'll be releasing the film end of March, early April. And we're just trying to solidify our distribution partnerships now. But yeah, for all of us, we're all busy thinking and dreaming of the next projects as well. And that is the life of creative people, unfortunately, sometimes to our detriment.
I almost forgot to ask you this, but Mary, you do know something about Teaneck that I don't think most of us do know at all, and the Baha'i connection. If you want to just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, does anybody else want to elaborate on that? I've been talking a lot. Bree, your daughter was
Go,
there for a while.
go forth. Go forth.
So Teaneck, New Jersey is really, really special for I think I was gonna say for the Baha'is, but it's not just for the Baha'is. It's very much a regional location. It's a location that was blessed with a visit by the son of the founder of the Baha'i faith after his release from prison from the Ottoman Empire. Um, he appeared at a wonderful man's home named Roy Wilhelm, which is that center in Teaneck, New Jersey. And from there, he gave many talks on peace, on the need for recognition of the oneness of the world of humanity, particularly on the need to overcome prejudices of any kind in order to build a world which we can actually continue to inhabit. He talked about environmental concerns. He talked about the need for a universal auxiliary language. Like so much happened from that location. And it became such a momentous place that before Abdul Baha left that region, he actually said that he hoped that there would be a regular annual anniversary picnic that would happen every year. And so it has since 1912. Every year, there's something called the Souvenir Picnic at the Roy Wilhelm House in Teaneck, New Jersey. And if people here are local or from New York area, they should make their way over and enjoy that because it really is something very, very special, a very special offering. But I know the community there continues to work on things like the empowerment of junior youth and youth. And that Teaneck itself is just such a beautifully diverse community that the message of peace, the message of overcoming racism, those messages resonate very much, I think, inside of that local community, which is gifted with that diversity.
Wow, thank you. That's
Pretty special.
Yeah, and I doubt that many of us who live in Teaneck actually know that. I really want to thank everybody. I could go on and on. I'm going to send people to your website, castasideTheClouds.com, if you have any other questions, because there's so many answers there. But I want to thank Mary, Bree, Felicia, Houman. Thank you so much for joining us. And I wish you all the best with this film.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
It's really a pleasure. And thanks to Teaneck for including us. We're so appreciative.